Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of what if Naruto was disciple of Fugaku Uchiha. In the dead of night, shortly after Naruto's birth, humanoid flight traps silently appeared in the children's ward of the hospital. The shadows of the vile creatures crept through the corridor like predators hunting defenseless prey, headed for the room where the newborn babies were sleeping. They carefully opened the door and slipped inside, bright yellow eyes piercing the darkness. The dark room was filled with the smell of childlike innocence, mixed with the scent of hospital disinfectants. White Zetsu grew impatient, fidgeting nervously. "Well, what the hell, which brat is our target?" he hissed, his guttural voice echoing ominously in the silence of the room. Black Zetsu lazily raised his head, giving White Zetsu an indifferent look. "Hurry up, you moron," he growled with a hint of boredom in his voice. "We don't have time for your tantrums." White Zetsu clenched his fists, his vile face burning with anger. Alright, calm down, you lazy bastard," he muttered, trying to control his emotions. He finally located the infant in the crib. "I hope this investment pays off, brat," he growled. His yellow eyes glinted with greed. Black Zetsu lazily raised his head, watching White with clear disapproval. "Shut up you dumbass," he hissed back. "No one wants to hear your damn nonsense." After completing their mission, the Zetsu disappeared without a trace from Konohagakure Hospital. As they left the nursery, the boy's eyes flashed with a scarlet glow. "Your son is perfectly healthy," the nurse announced, smiling at the young couple who were gazing lovingly at their son. The child's father smiled broadly, his face lighting up with joy. The mother, with red hair, also nodded with satisfaction. "The question remains, why does he have these eyes? Neither of us has the Uchiha clan genes," said his father after a short silence, furrowing his brow. "That's where you're wrong, Hikage-sama," the nurse announced, handing Minato the test results. "According to our analysis, you possess the genes of the Uchiha clan, admittedly in a negligible amount, but nevertheless they exist. The doctors hypothesize that your son's Uzumaki genes may have awakened dormant Uchiha genes, leading to this effect." Saying this, the nurse stared into the child's scarlet Sharingan eyes, one tomo lazily spinning in each. Minato's mind began to work intensely, analyzing this information. This theory is absurd, but at the same time it's the most likely one. The chance of a child activating the Sharingan must have been negligible if my knowledge of the inheritance of traits is to be believed. The fact that he's already pushing chakra to his eyes and has already awakened the Sharingan is a complete mystery. Minato thought with a sigh. He could already sense the coming migraine when he'd inevitably have to explain to Fugaku that his clan's esteemed Kekkei Genkai was awakened outside of his clan. He was suddenly awakened from his thoughts. "Minato, he's still our son," Kushina exclaimed, not at all worried about the child's eyes. She's right, Minato thought, forgetting his concerns to embrace his wife and newborn child. 5 years later, October 10 THD. Konohagakure experienced a terrible tragedy. Without any warning, the nine-tailed fox appeared, wreaking destruction all around. 5-year-old Naruto could only stare at the beast. Standing next to him was his closest and probably only friend, Izumi Uchiha. She was holding her newborn brother, Sasuke. Izumi's parents entrusted her with his care and left Izumi herself in the care of Naruto, who was very mature for his age. Fugaku and Makoto Uchiha went to support the shinobi in their attempts to push the nine-tailed fox out of the village. Naruto and Izumi stared in horror at the beast destroying Konohagakure. The shinobi struggled, trying to push it outside the village walls, but all attempts proved futile. "Mom, Dad, I hope you're alright," both children thought worriedly. They looked anxiously into the distance, and in Naruto's eyes one tomo turned into two, frantically analyzing the situation. "Izumi-chan, we have to go to the shelter," the boy announced. Izumi could only nod slightly. Naruto grabbed her hand and started pulling her toward the shelter. The boy believed in the strength of the village and his family, he was confident that they would be able to control the situation. At that moment, he decided that he would become strong enough to face any threat to Konohagakure. "Minato, you plan to use the Shikifujin?" Hiruzen asked with tired eyes. He was weighed down by age and countless wars. He knew he'd done enough to deserve his rest. "The Wako is dead, my children are all grown up. I leave the village in good hands," Hiruzen thought, resolving himself to make one last sacrifice for the village. "Take me with you." "Let me do the sealing," Hiruzen announced. Minato looked up in shock, ready to refute, but it quickly turned into understanding. Both were ready to make great sacrifices for the good of the village. "Alright," Minato resigned, creating a single shadow clone that moved next to Hiruzen. The clone placed a hand on his shoulder and teleported them inside the prepared barrier to reseal the nine-tailed fox. Throwing his signature kunai above the Kyuubi, he reappeared right above the fox with a kunai in mouth. With lightning speed, he slid his thumb and went through the seals to summon the chief toad. Or dog bird monkey ram. Fuchius no Jutsu. To his disbelief, Gamabanta appeared right in the middle of Konohagakure and on the back of the Kyuubi no less. A huge toad crushed the fox with its weight, giving Minato precious seconds to act. Seizing the moment, Minato teleported Kyuubi inside the barrier D. Shikifujin. Hiruzen yelled, the Shinigami's ghastly silhouette appearing behind him, trapping his soul. After a moment, the Shinigami began wrapping his left arm with prayer beads, intoning unintelligible songs. When he finished, a cursed seal appeared on his arm. The Shinigami then rammed his arm into Hiruzen, piercing it through to the other side. Meanwhile the fox had been immobilized thanks to the combined strength of Kushina and Minato. When he saw Minato's clone appear at the altar with a child in his hand, he understood their plan. He couldn't react, however, because he felt something grab him. Chills ran through his body as he turned his gaze to another monkey, followed by the figure of Death. Seeing Death already holding him and looking down to the child, the fox realized its defeat. Minato, I will seal the yin chakra of the Kyuubi into young Miss Yumi and the yin chakra into Kushina so she may survive, Hiruzen announced. Arigato, Sandaime-sama, Minato and Kushina solemnly thanked as they witnessed the Sandaime Hokage's final sacrifice. Minato, I leave the village in your hands. Hiruzen thought before closing his eyes for the last time. Look Sachikin, it's Yamato, Miss Yumi, Kushina said, gently lifting the tiny girl so Naruto could see her. The boy's eyes widened with surprise and delight. Cute, he managed to choke out, unable to take his eyes off his Yamato's petite face and delicate hands. Yes, she is pretty. After all, she's my little Musume, Kushina said with pride rippling through her heart as she hummed a lullaby, rocking Miss Yumi in her arms. Gazing at his sister, Naruto felt something he had never experienced before. A wave of warmth and love flooded his heart. I will do everything to protect that smile. I'll be her protector and her brother, and she will forever serve as my strength. Izumi, I'm going to ask my parents to admit me to the Shinobi Academy later this year, the boy announced, looking over the village from atop the Sandaime's head. A huge debt of gratitude to the elder was smoldering in his heart. It was thanks to his sacrifice that his family was still happy and whole. Why the rush, Naruto? Izumi questioned, wrinkling her eyebrows in concentration. She didn't understand her friend's haste. After a moment's thought, she added, after all, you know very well what the life of a shinobi is like. My mother would certainly not have allowed me to enter the academy so early. The boy turned his gaze away from the village skyline for a moment and directed it at his friend, with a happy smile on his face. I want to gain the strength to protect my loved ones, he announced, and then, spreading his hands toward the village, he added, I want the strength to protect this village which I've come to call my family and my home. I understand, but I'll still be sad, Naruto, the girl sighed, aware that if Naruto goes to the academy, he will quickly become a shinobi, which will drastically limit the time they can spend together. Izumi, I promise you that I will always find time to be there for you, Naruto affirmed, knowing all too well his friend's thoughts. Promise? Izumi asked, looking for reassurance. Promise. I swear nothing will break the bond we share. He reaffirmed with determination in his voice. Naruto returned home late that evening. Determination burned in his eyes. He knew that what he was about to request would come as a shock to his parents, especially his mother. But he had to do it. The academy was the first step in his quest to protect his village, his loved ones, and the peace they enjoyed. He quietly entered, removing his shoes and walking to the living room. Kushina was setting dinner on the table, and Minato was staring intently at a scroll of some sort, probably a shinobi mission report important enough that he was even reading it during the meal. Honey, put this report away and have dinner in peace, Kushina announced in a sweet voice and all too sweet smile. Years of living together had taught Minato that when Kushina speaks in that tone, it's better to comply with her request. With a sigh, he put down the scroll and smiled slightly at his wife. In the cot next to the family table slept Miss Yumi. Her pretty calm face only added to the determination in Naruto's heart. Mom, Dad, I'd like to ask you something, he announced in a trembling voice. As both parents focused their eyes on him, he added, I would like to enter the Shinobi Academy. Naruto's words caught them off guard. They didn't expect their son, at such a young age, to be thinking about becoming a shinobi. That night as obviously etched itself in his memory, Minato thought with a hint of understanding in his eyes. How could it not? The boy was only 5 and witnessed one of the worst calamities in the shinobi world. Still, he longed to hear from his son what had prompted him to want to become a shinobi so early. Honey, don't you think you're still too young to be a shinobi? Kushina asked, concern evident in her voice. Naruto, why do you want to become a shinobi? Minato suddenly asked, ignoring the look his wife gave him. Instead, he looked directly into his son's amber eyes. Unsure of how they respond, Naruto faltered for a second. What if they don't take me seriously? I'm only a kid. His glance then shifted to Miss Yumi. That's right, I don't fight for myself. I fight for them. But that he looked up to meet his father's eyes, two tomo swirling in each showing the conviction in his mind. I want the strength to protect my loved ones and this village, to never have those precious to me go through hardship again, Naruto announced, voice full of determination. The words brought a mixture of shock and disbelief to Kushina's face, as she stuttered denials. Minato, on the other hand, quietly smiled with understanding and acceptance. It's okay, Naruto. The academy starts next week. He announced, casting a meaningful glance at Kushina, letting her know that there was no topic for discussion. I can't stomp on his dreams, Kushina. I'm sorry, Minato thought, watching his son with pride and hope in his eye. A week later, Naruto stood in front of the building which had produced some of the village's strongest shinobi, including his parents. His heart was pounding with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. He didn't know if he had the talent to be a shinobi, but he felt a great passion and determination pushing him forward. The academy is just the beginning, he thought, clenching his fists. Raising his head, he stepped inside. He immediately drew the attention of the older students. Their puzzled looks were mixed with awe as they witnessed the son of the Hokage. No one expected someone as young as him to dare join the academy. Naruto ignored their stares in favor of reaching his classroom. He found a Chunin sitting at a desk. Namikaze-sama, can I help you? A bit young to be attending the academy, isn't it? Naruto wordlessly handed him a letter with the Hokage's official seal. The Chunin instructor read the contents intently, and his face became serious. I wonder what he will grow up to be, he thought with a slight smile. To think that in my first year as an academy instructor, I will be teaching the fourth Hokage's son. I can't wait. He looked back to Naruto. Namikaze-sama, are you sure you want to join the academy? Most aspirants start studying at the age of 7 or 8, that's including clan-raised children. Naruto nodded, determination clear in his eyes. The Chunin chuckled. I can see that you have enthusiasm. But whether you have the talent, we'll find out soon enough. Come in. Naruto's entrance caused a wave of disbelief and whispers among the students. As you can see, we have been joined by another student. Announced the Chunin in a loud voice, quelling the whispers. I don't want to hear any comments about his age. As you know, in the shinobi world, age doesn't matter. This boy may yet surprise you. Naruto, introduce yourself, the instructor motioned. He was curious how his charges would react when they learned that the Hokage's son would be studying in their class. My name is Naruto Namikaze, it's a pleasure to meet you, Naruto announced in a warm voice, scratching at the back of his head with a hint of shyness while a blush appeared on his cheeks. I will be in your care for the coming years. Aoi. Thought all the girls in the class at the sight of the boy's gesture. Instructor, why does he have such strange eyes? Asked one student who comes from a civilian family. Because those are the eyes of the Uchiha clan's blood limit. Their Sharingan, a powerful visual technique, the instructor replied with a smile on his face, then turned to Naruto, can you deactivate them, Naruto? Oh, I forgot, Naruto replied, nodding. After a moment, his scarlet Sharingan faded into blue eyes. I heard that this boy was born with those eyes, the instructor thought with a hint of curiosity. Scarlet Sharingan, huh? Alright, cut the chatter. Naruto, please take your seat, because I want to continue the lesson, the instructor announced. The sound of the doorbell echoed off the walls in Namikaze's house. Kushina, holding a sleeping Mitsumi in her arms, rushed to the door to greet her guests. When she opened it, she saw Mikoto with Sasuke in her arms and Izumi clinging to her hand. Hi Kusha-chan. Izumi wanted to visit Naruto and ask how his first day at the academy was, Mikoto announced calmly, rocking a lightly sleeping Sasuke. Oh, Mikoto. Come in, Kushina replied, opening the door wider. To be honest, I was expecting you earlier. Really? Mikoto asked with mixed feelings on her face. Izumi-chan, Naruto is probably in his room, relayed Kushina to the girl, who immediately dashed toward the boy's room. Kushina, seeing this, smiled warmly. They're close, huh? Mikoto asked, watching her daughter's actions. Yes, very much so, Kushina replied happily, heading into the living room with Mikoto. Do you still resent Minato for allowing young Naruto to enter the academy at such a young age? She questioned, staring at her friend. Not anymore, but it makes me sad that I'm spending less time with Naruto because of it, you know. Replied Kushina with a hint of sadness in her voice. That's understandable, Kusha-chan. But Naruto's goal is very mature. Perhaps you should give him the room to pursue it, Mikoto encouraged. I know, Mikoto. I'm proud of him, Kushina announced, smiling slightly. No Naruto-kun, how was your first day at the academy? Izumi asked after a brief greeting with the boy. Naruto, delighted by her visit, began eagerly recounting the day's events. It was alright. The instructor seems fair and reasonable. We learned the basics of Taijutsu and how to throw shurikens. But he abruptly stopped and his face grew sad. My eyes make my peers uneasy. They constantly stare at me and whisper behind my back. Sensing his sadness, she put her hand on his shoulder for support. Her touch was gentle but full of warmth. "Don't worry about them, Naruto," she said softly. "Your eyes are beautiful. They will surely become your strength in the future." Izumi's words enveloped Naruto like a warm blanket. He felt understood and accepted. "Thank you, Izumi," he replied, and a glimmer of hope appeared in his eyes. "You're right. I won't let them stifle me." 6 months later. Akira Uchiha, instructor of Naruto's class, called a meeting with the other instructors. The topic of discussion was the situation of his unique charge. "I would like to discuss the possibility of an early graduation exam for Naruto," Akira announced. Seeing the lack of focus from the other instructors, he added, "His talent is too great to keep him at the academy any longer. He absorbs all of my teachings and lessons and truly sees the potential even in the simplest jutsu. He's a prodigy just like his father." That got the other instructors' attention. On the other hand, his presence creates negative emotions among his peers. Instead of feeling determination to catch up with him, they blame the world for the injustice. "It can't be like this. This environment will only hinder him and subject him to negative sentiments." "Let's remember that he's the Hokage's son," one of the instructors interjected. "We all know how the Hokage loves his family. Do you think he would approve of his son becoming a genin at such a young age?" "We don't need to inform the Hokage about the exam," replied another instructor. "If Naruto passes it, he will automatically become a genin. According to the rules established by Nide-sama, a child who shows extraordinary ability may be subjected to an examination at the request of the academy instructors," Akira announced, bringing the discussion back on track. The senior instructor mulled over it for a moment. "I will propose a vote to decide Naruto Namikaze's opportunity for early graduation. I'm in favor of providing the young Namikaze this opportunity to grow beyond the classroom." After a brief deliberation, all the instructors unanimously agreed. Was it really for the best though? The next day during Naruto's class, a senior instructor entered the room unannounced. His firm voice immediately caught the attention of all the students. "Is Namikaze Naruto present?" Naruto stood up and nodded, his eyebrows raised in confusion. "Follow me," the instructor ordered, departing the classroom in silence. Naruto, not knowing what to do, looked to Akira-sensei. A slight smile and a nod from Akira reassured him. He caught up with the senior instructor and walked beside him in silence. Naruto's thoughts whirled. What happened? He wondered, but searched unsuccessfully for answers to his questions. Finally, Naruto recognized the place they were heading to. He and his class had been here before when Akira-sensei wanted to show them what the graduation exam was like. The closer they got, the more Naruto was piecing together the facts. Slowly understanding appeared on his face. "So you've already started to guess what it's all about, eh, kid?" The instructor smirked, opening the door to the exam room. Inside, 2 other instructors were waiting for him, and among them was Akira-sensei. Naruto was puzzled. "How Daikage Bunshin," Akira interrupted. "Since you know what's going on, let's get straight to the point," the senior instructor announced seriously. "You have been given the chance to become a genin prematurely thanks to young Akira-sensei. Do you agree to accept this honor?" "Of course I do," replied Naruto with determination in his voice. Never in his life would he have thought that the instructors would give him the chance to prove his talents as a shinobi so early. Akira smiled at this. "Naruto, I believe in you." He was proud of his protege. During those 6 months, Naruto proved to be a calm, disciplined and wise student who absorbed all the knowledge he tried to impart to him. "For my first year at the Shinobi Academy, I did a fantastic job," Akira mentally fist-pumped. Naruto walked out of the Shinobi Academy, holding a black protector with the Konoha symbol in his right hand. He couldn't believe this was happening. At the age of 5, he became a genin. Although the future made him anxious, his red eyes glowed with determination to meet all the challenges that would stand in his way. Suddenly he paled. "Mom will kill me," he thought, recalling his mother's reaction 6 months before. Thankfully she wasn't the first person he planned to confide the great news in. He headed toward the Uchiha district to visit his best friend Izumi and Aunt Mikoto. Arriving at the home of the clan head, he found Izumi engulfing a lollipop in front of him. Upon seeing him, the girl smiled radiantly and, with a hand gesture, invited him to sit down with her. Naruto happily complied and Izumi immediately took out a second lollipop. "What brings you here, Naruto-kun?" she asked in a warm voice, still holding the lollipop in her hand, as if waiting for his reaction. Her black eyes sparkled with curiosity. Naruto hesitated for a moment, but after a moment he accepted the lollipop gratefully. A look of worry was painted on his face as he held a black forehead protector. "Will she be mad at me for graduating? We'll have less time together after this." Stifling those thoughts, he showed her his protector with a wide smile. "I became a genin," he announced. Izumi looked at the protector and then at Naruto for a moment, giving her mind time to process this news. When it finally dawned on her what had happened, she sprang from her seat and ran home, screaming. Kasen. What happened, honey? Makoto asked with concern in her voice, focusing her gaze on her daughter. Fugaku reacted similarly. However, neither of them could have predicted the news Izumi was about to give them. Naruto became a genin. She exclaimed in disbelief. Shock was painted on Makoto's face, while Fugaku did not hide his pride. Moments later, the man himself entered. He proudly tied his black protector around his forehead, showing them proof that he had become a genin. Naruto! Shouted Makoto with a hint of anger in her voice. Naruto immediately paled knowing that voice. Fugaku shifted his gaze from Naruto to his protector, and a shadow of pride appeared on his face. Interesting, very interesting, he wondered aloud, then nodded to himself, as if he had made some kind of decision. After a long conversation in which Naruto was reprimanded by Makoto, Fugaku finally decided to tell Minato the news of the new genin. He reached the Hokage's office, where the secretary let him in without a problem. Minato was surprised to see the Uchiha clan head in his office, but quickly put on a serious face and invited him in. Fugaku, what brings you to me? Minato asked curiously. I would like to take someone under my wing, just as Jiraiya once did with you, he replied seriously. If this works, it might just benefit the Uchiha clan. Someone caught your attention, my friend? Minato asked, increasingly curious about the situation. Yes, he recently passed the genin exam, and I feel that I will be the perfect teacher for him, Fugaku announced, intentionally leaving off the person in question. Curious, Minato began to look through the lineups of recent genin yearbooks in his mind, but couldn't find anyone who might interest Fugaku enough to take him under his wing. Sighed Minato when he realized that he would not receive any more information about the mysterious genin. He pulled out 2 copies of the apprentice request document and signed them for Fugaku, who eagerly awaited. You don't even suspect that your son has already become a genin, Minato? Thought Fugaku tauntingly, and smiled broadly as he typed the data into the document and the copy, so that Minato couldn't back out after signing both. Fugaku filled out both pieces of paper and signed them, then handed the original to Minato to archive. 3, 2, 1, counted Fugaku in his mind. Minato spat out his coffee in shock. He began nervously reviewing the student request sheet, and his gaze wandered from time to Fugaku's face, displaying a disbelieving smile. Never in his life had he imagined that not only would Fugaku one day stand on his doorstep with such a request, but also that his disciple would be his own son. On top of all this, he had no idea that Naruto had already managed to become a genin. Fugaku, are you kidding me? He growled, a mix of anger and disbelief could be heard in his voice. My son is still a student at the academy. Minato, you and I both know perfectly well that I'm not joking, so let's get this formality over with. Fugaku rebuked, his smile becoming even wider if possible at the shock painted on the Hokage's face. According to this, Naruto Namikaze becomes my personal disciple. I still can't believe what you're saying. Repeated Minato, still unable to shake off his surprise. Naruto is just an academy student. Naruto has become a genin, Fugaku announced seriously, causing a real storm of emotions in Minato. On the one hand, he felt anger and disbelief that the instructors would do this without his approval, while on the other he felt fatherly pride. Without wasting another moment, Minato disappeared in a yellow flash. Around the same time as Fugaku's discussion, Kushina was giving Naruto a stern reprimand. Hearing the cries of his wife, Minato realized that Fugaku's words had proven true. Shouts from the kitchen had also awoken Misumi. Understanding that Kushina first needed to cool off and talk to Naruto, he decided to take Misumi outside. Naruto Namikaze! Shouted Kushina with anger, eyes turning comically wide and hair beginning to form 9 parts, like the tails of a certain demonic fox, and seriously, is this hereditary? Do you realize what you have done? The eyes, Kachin, I've become a genin, Naruto announced rather quietly. He had never heard such anger in his mother's voice before. Gathering his remaining courage, he added, staring at Kushina's upset face, I took another step toward my goal. Ugh, I know it had to happen someday, but I never would have thought it would happen so early. Thought Kushina, looking down at her son's protector. What's done is done, but I'll have a talk with Minato and the instructors at the Shinobi Academy, how dare they. After saying these words, Naruto began sweating. His mother's anger compounded with the fury of the demonic fox, still frightened him. Kushina, seeing the fear in her son's eyes, began to calm down. Sachi, I'm just worried about you, she said in a trembling voice. She walked over to Naruto, crouched down and lifted his face to look into her eyes. I'm worried about you, you're too young for the brutal reality of shinobi. Naruto saw tears in his mother's eyes. He realized that she wasn't really angry with him, but only oppressed by her fear for his safety. Son, you know I love you. Whispered Kushina and embraced him tightly. After a moment, Naruto reciprocated, snuggling into the warmth of his mother's arms. After a long moment, Kushina pulled away from her son and smiled gently. "Son, will you call your father? He's outside. Take care of Miss Yumi too, while we talk," she said in a sweet voice. The boy breathed a sigh of relief, hearing that his mother's words were no longer directed at him. "Omen-tauchen, I hope you make it out," he thought. He found Minato cradling Miss Yumi in his arms. At the sound of the opening door, the man paused for a moment and looked at his son with a serious expression. "Achin is calling you," Naruto said in a quiet voice. Minato nodded and approached the boy. "You know we'll talk later," he said, handing him his little sister. Despite a bad feeling, he knew he had to open it and talk to his wife. The thought of the upcoming conversation with Kushina didn't fill him with optimism. On the contrary, he felt that she would be merciless towards him. "Miss Yumi-chan, your brother became a genin," Naruto announced proudly, lifting little Miss Yumi higher in the air. The girl giggled happily, clapping her hands. "That means I'll be able to protect you soon," Naruto added, his voice taking on a warm tone. He looked at his sister with tenderness in his eyes. "And everyone else I care about," he finished in his thoughts. A new determination burned in his heart. He wanted to become a strong shinobi so that he could provide security for those he loved. Miss Yumi didn't fully understand her brother's words, but she felt his joy and excitement. In response, she smiled broadly, revealing her toothless gums. Naruto smiled back at her. Gazing into her innocent eyes, he promised himself that he would do everything in his power to protect her smile. "Minato Namikaze!" Kushina screamed as soon as she saw him at the door. Her hair once again forming 9 tails and eyes wide as she unleashed killing and Tenkai in waves. "Honey, it's not my fault." The man tried to defend himself, but his words bounced off Kushina like a rubber wall. She approached him with anger, her voice becoming icy. "Continue. I have nothing to do with it. The instructors probably took advantage of the law established by the Nidame-sama," he pleaded, but his explanations made no impression on Kushina. "I don't deny that, but who enrolled my Narichan in the academy to begin with?" she asked him, her eyes flashing with lightning. "You're right," but he couldn't finish, because Kushina threw herself at him with the force of a mother's anger. At night the pathetic screams of a grown man echoed through the village. The screams of the Yondaime Hokage echoed through the night air, alarming the Anbu patrol. A squad immediately rushed towards the Namikaze house. As they approached, they could hear more clearly the groans of pain and whimpers of fear. "Is that Hokage-sama?" Mouse whispered, his hand tightening on the hilt of his kunai. "Yes, Mouse," the captain confirmed, grimly clenching his lips. "But something tells me that intervention is not advisable." They stopped in the shadows, observing the house. In the moonlight, they could see the silhouette of a red figure with 9 thrashing tails. "Are we sure we shouldn't interfere?" Mouse asked, his voice trembling with anxiety. The captain looked at him disapprovingly. "Tell me, Mouse, do you want to go in there?" he asked, pointing to the house. Mouse paled and lowered his gaze. Everyone knew that facing Kushina in such a fury was like signing their own death warrant. "No," he replied quietly. Silence fell. The Hokage's screams gradually subsided, giving way to a gloomy silence. "We're going back to base," the captain ordered. Mouse and the others nodded, disappearing into the darkness. Kushina finally stepped outside to tend to Miss Yumi. Naruto, on the other hand, his heart filled with a mixture of fear and curiosity, headed towards the house where Minato awaited him. In the dimness of the room, Minato sat huddled in a chair at the table, his figure still trembling from the nightmare he had just experienced. His face was a mix of pain, exhaustion, and relief. Naruto approached his father, his gaze fixated on his tired eyes. He wanted to say something, but the words were stuck in his throat. Minato gestured for him to sit down in the chair across from him. "Ouchin," Naruto began with a trembling voice, but Minato stopped him with a gesture of his hand. "Wait a moment, Naruto," Minato said in a hoarse voice. "I need to calm down first." Minato clenched his fists and took a few deep breaths. After a few minutes of silence, he finally regained his composure. "Naruto, as your father, I am proud of you, but also worried about this situation," Minato declared. After a moment's thought, he added, "Like your mother, I worry about you. But I also understand what motivated you. So don't explain to me why you did it." After these words, they both contemplated in silence, until Minato broke it with a sigh. "Son, I never would have expected you to possess such great talent. At the age of 5, you became a genin, catching the attention of one of our best jounin. That jounin immediately seized the opportunity to become your mentor," Minato said with pride in his voice, but also with a hint of sadness. Naruto, surprised by these words, began to wonder who the people were who would want to guide him. "You don't even know how surprised I was when this elite jounin entered my office on his own, announcing that he wanted to take a personal student under his wing," Minato added, then continued with a hint of anger and frustration in his voice. "He didn't tell me who the student was, and I fell for it and signed both documents. He became your mentor. Although I'm happy that he took on this role, I still feel angry with him." He deceived me. A wide smile spread across Naruto's face, his scarlet eyes sparkling with joy. He finally had the chance to become a powerful shinobi. You will go to him personally tomorrow, Minato continued, a hint of pride in his voice. He will explain to you how your relationship as mentor and student will work. Remember, Naruto, that it is a great honor to be under the care of such a distinguished shinobi. You have the right to be excited, but don't forget about hard work and discipline. They are the keys to success. Naruto listened attentively to his father's words. He wanted to prove that he was worthy of his teachings and would not disappoint the hopes placed on him. Do you have any questions? Minato asked, seeing the thoughtful look on his son's face. A multitude of questions were swirling in his head, but one of them stood out. Who is my mentor? He asked nervously. Minato smiled mysteriously. It's a surprise, he said. You'll find out tomorrow when you meet him. The rays of the rising sun lazily broke through the thin curtains, gently mussing Naruto's face. The boy was awakened by an insistent tapping at the window. He opened his eyelids sleepy and tired after a sleepless night. Mind still hazy from sleep, he slowly pushed back the blanket and crawled to the window. Surprise mixed with curiosity when he saw a black raven pecking persistently at the glass. Attached to its slender beak was a small piece of paper. Naruto carefully opened the window and removed it from the bird's beak. The paper was crumpled and the ink smudged, as if someone had written in a hurry. Training Ground 11, 9 a.m. The lack of a signature did not worry Naruto. Intuition told him the message was from his mysterious mentor. The boy smiled under his breath. Using a raven to communicate, that was definitely something for the Uchiha clan. He glanced at the clock. There was little time left. He quickly jumped out of bed and dressed in his favorite orange jacket and black pants. After a quick breakfast and brief chat with his mother, Naruto set off toward Training Ground 11. After a while Naruto realized that he had no idea where Training Yard number 11 was located. He stopped for a moment, looking around helplessly. Then his gaze fell on a young Chunin who was walking past him. "No, can you tell me where I can find Training Ground 11? Naruto asked. The Chunin stopped and smiled warmly at him. "Of course, I'll be happy to help. It's located north of the Uchiha clan district. You can't miss it, it's a large open area surrounded by a high wall." Well, the rumors turned out to be true. The Hokage's son actually became a genin. Thought the woman, smiling broadly at Naruto. A mixture of admiration and pride was painted in her eyes. He bid farewell to the Chunin and headed toward the indicated place. A mixture of excitement and trepidation buzzed in his heart. He was about to meet his mentor and begin his real adventure as a shinobi. When he reached the training yard, a large empty area appeared to his eyes. In the middle stood a lone man with his arms crossed over his chest. Naruto recognized him immediately. It was Fugaku Uchiha, head of the Uchiha clan and one of the strongest shinobi in the village. "You're late," Fugaku said in a stern tone. Naruto lowered his gaze. "Sorry, I didn't know where." "Don't explain yourself," Fugaku interrupted him. "The important thing is that you're here. Let's start by introducing ourselves. My name is Fugaku Uchiha. I am the clan head of the Uchiha clan. My dream is for the Uchiha clan to become the strongest in the village, and now another one has come along. I want you to become the most powerful shinobi of the village. I sense that there is great potential in you, boy. My hobby and way of life is constant training. I strive for perfection in every aspect of the art of shinobi. What I love is my family." Naruto understood what he was about to do and also decided to introduce himself. He grunted and straightened up, determination in his eyes. "My name is Naruto Namikaze. My dream, no, my life's goal, is to become strong enough to protect my loved ones in my village. I yearn to achieve lasting peace for Konoha. My hobbies include spending time with my family and Izumi-chan." The boy introduced himself. Good, he has a positive goal and determination, if his eyes are to be believed. Thought Fugaku, looking at Naruto. "I'm not going to test you, because I consider it superfluous," Fugaku announced, and after a moment added. "The first technique I will teach you will be the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu shadow replication technique. It will help us in your training and speed up the achievement of our common goal. However, I warn you not to mention it to your parents." "MHM?" nodded the boy with understanding. "Tell me, Naruto, have you ever copied shinobi techniques with your eyes before?" asked Fugaku, pointing to his eyes. "Yes," replied Naruto hesitantly, feeling bad about it. In his mind, the Sharingan was like a cheat, especially in the context of his hard work and training. He had put a lot of effort into his studies since entering the academy, and his peers still thought he was cheating with his eyes. The Sharingan was a heavy and touchy subject for him, one he was ashamed of. "Boy," Fugaku called, seeing his thoughts wandering. "Your eyes are a powerful tool. It would be foolish not to use them." But, Naruto tried to explain, but Fugaku immediately interrupted him with a stern look. "There's no but." shouted Fugaku firmly, and seeing further indecision in the boy's eyes, he added, your eyes are a tool, so use them. I'm sure you know how to turn on your Sharingan, correct? At his nod, he continued. Watch exactly what I do, because I want you to copy this technique. Naruto began to channel chakra to his eyes, two Tomo swirled to life as Fugaku stole a glance. Truly a unique Taijutsu, even amongst the Uchiha clan. What else could that color mean? He then slowly demonstrated the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, allowing the boy to copy it. Before Naruto could attempt to perform it, however, Fugaku stopped him. This jutsu allows the user to create copies of himself. The user's chakra is equally divided between their clones. Creating one clone will transfer half of the user's chakra to, creating two clones will give each one a third, and so on. Depending on the amount of chakra one has and the number of clones created, this can lead to its rapid depletion, which can be dangerous. Unlike the Bunshin no Jutsu, Kage Bunshins are physical. They are indistinguishable from the original, even by jutsu. Fugaku continued describing the technique with Naruto absorbing his words. Kage Bunshins can be used as decoys to conceal the identity of the original user, perform their own jutsu and actions independent of the user, and can either disperse on their own or be dispersed by the user. Once dispersed, the clone's experience and chakra are transferred back to the user. Naruto repeated Fugaku's last words in his mind. Once dispersed, the clone's experiences and the remaining chakra in it are transferred back to the user. He suddenly understood why Fugaku wanted to teach him this very technique. If the experiences are transmitted, so is the knowledge gained by the clone. I see you understand, boy. That's how I want to use this technique, to teach you many things at once. I especially want to use your unique heritage for this purpose. My heritage? Asked Naruto, curious about Fugaku's words. Yes, Naruto. For one, your chakra capacity will only continue to grow as in Uzumaki. One day I suppose you will have more chakra than me. The second is your eyes, the Sharingan and their extraordinary power to copy techniques. Combined with Kage Bunshin, they can become a powerful learning tool. Imagine that a clone can learn a technique and then pass that knowledge on to you when you return. In this way, you can learn many techniques at an accelerated pace. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. He had never thought of Sharingan in this way. The possibility of speeding up his training was extremely tempting. I want to teach you how to use this technique to its maximum potential, Fugaku continued. But remember, Naruto, power comes with responsibility. Use the Kage Bunshin wisely. Naruto nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement inside him. He was ready to start learning to become a stronger shinobi. I understand, Naruto replied, clenching his fists in determination. Fugaku's words stuck in his mind. He had never tried this technique before, but he was determined to learn it. Good. Now try to perform the technique, Fugaku instructed, his stern gaze resting on Naruto. The boy nodded, focusing on the chakra pulsing inside him. He imagined a stream of energy flowing through his meridians, like a rushing stream. Naruto closed his eyes, using the inside of his Sharingan to help him perform the technique. He formed a cross-hand sign and molded his chakra. Smoke swirled in the air around him, quickly obscuring him. When it cleared, 3 identical clones stood around Naruto. Excellent. Praised Fugaku, and the shadow of a smile appeared on his face. You managed to create 3 clones the first time. That's impressive, Naruto. Naruto smiled broadly, pride spreading across his chest. He knew he still had a long way to go, but this success felt like another step toward his goal. Their quiet conversation was interrupted by the sudden appearance of an Anbu member. Uchiha-sama, Hikage-sama calls for a council meeting. Fugaku nodded, his onyx eyes flashed with an unfamiliar glow. After receiving confirmation, the Anbu disappeared without a shunshin. Naruto, I want you and your clones to get down to reading these books, Fugaku ordered, pointing to a pile of books that suddenly appeared next to him. Understood, Naruto replied with a note of determination in his voice. The boy knew the gravity of the situation. The village council was not called for no reason. The village council, I think I even know what it will be about, thought Fugaku, then disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Fugaku entered the meeting room, nodding and greeting. He was the only one besides the Hokage who didn't hide his surprise at being summoned to the meeting, something which didn't escape the attention of others. Since everyone is present, it's time to present a reason for the meeting, Minato announced, placing his hands on the table. He looked at those gathered, and his blue eyes flashed with determination. I would like to revoke a law established by Nadame-sama. The Hokage's words caused a wave of surprise and agitation among the council members. What law is it exactly? Fugaku asked, clenching his fists under the table. Although he knew perfectly well what the law was about, he felt uneasy at the thought of change. The law allowed gifted children to take the genin exam early, as long as all Shinobi Academy instructors agreed. I'm referring to a law allowing children with exceptional talent to take the Genin exam before the legal age, provided all academy instructors agree, Minato explained, watching the reactions of those gathered. There was silence in the room, with each council member weighing the arguments for and against the change. Minato, if I understand correctly, you want to block this possibility? Asked Danzo Shimura. After a moment, he added, this law was established by the second Hokage so as not to waste the talents of young shinobi. Minato acknowledged this. Yes, I realize that. However, let's not forget the real purpose for which the shinobi village system was established. The villages were established to protect children from having to participate in wars at an early age. We should protect the innocence of the new generation for as long as possible to ensure a brighter future for them. Silence fell in the room. Many council members, especially those who had children of their own, agreed. Well, this is true, I'm curious, what made you want to change this law, Hikage-sama? Homura asked. My son took the Genin exam and passed it at the age of 5. I don't want another child to experience the darkness of the shinobi world at such a young age, announced Minato. An argument immediately ensued. Council members expressed their opinions, arguing for and against the Hokage's proposal. Some feared that abolishing the right to an early Genin exam would discourage talented children from developing their skills. Others felt that protecting children from the atrocities of war was paramount. Although I understand the concerns of some of you, I have still made the final decision to abolish this law, announced Minato in a firm voice. Some council members did not hide their outrage. This is outrageous. Shouted Danzo Shimura, slamming his fist on the table. How can you deprive talented children of the opportunity to develop their skills? It's my duty to protect all Konohagakure children, and this law puts them in danger. The Hokage rebuked, not taking his eyes off Danzo. In the shinobi world, children grow up too fast. Hikage-sama, what about those children who have already begun shinobi training? Asked one of the council members. They will continue their studies at the academy until they reach the legal age, Minato explained. Only then will they be able to take the Genin exam. The discussion continued for some time, but in the end Minato put his weight behind it. The right to take the premature Genin exam was abolished. Fugaku stormed out of the meeting room. The Hokage's decision to abolish the right to take the premature Genin exam had hit straight at his ambitious plans for Izumi. The girl was undoubtedly talented, and now her path to becoming a shinobi had been lengthened. Even though I sense this turn of events, I still feel the bitterness of defeat. He thought as he went to deliver the news to Naruto. When he arrived, he found the boy engrossed in reading, accompanied by his clones. And to be honest, I didn't think he would be so eager to learn. Thought Fugaku with a note of satisfaction in his voice. That's good, at least I know he'll obey my orders. Naruto, stepping in front of the boy, who immediately took his eyes off the book and raised his head to look at his mentor. Sensei. From now on, we will meet here for regular training. You will not participate in rank missions. I consider them a waste of time and worthless for shinobi development, announced Fugaku firmly. You're to report here every day at 7 a.m. I'll assign you training tasks, and I'll take care of the police force's duties myself. I will return here in the afternoon to check your progress. If they turn out to be satisfactory, you will be rewarded. Remember that any satisfactory result will be rewarded and any inadequate result will be punished. This will be the nature of our relationship mentor and student. Do you understand? Fugaku stared at Naruto with penetrating eyes, scrutinizing him. He wanted to see a shadow of fear or doubt in his eyes, but only saw fire there. Understood, Fugaku-sensei, he replied firmly. He didn't want to disappoint someone who was willing to give him so much time and attention. In his heart, he promised himself that he would do absolutely everything not to disappoint his new mentor's expectations. Fugaku nodded approvingly, and his eyes flashed with satisfaction. In Naruto's brief response, he fully understood the potential inherent in the boy standing before him. Good. A positive remark it may be, it sounded more like an order. However, today's training comes to an end. You need time to absorb your clones and analyze the knowledge you have gained. Naruto nodded as a sign of understanding. As an assignment, think about which shinobi fields you would like to specialize in. Remember this choice will impact your future path, Fugaku added. However, before you can do that, you still have to complete one more task. Fugaku reached into his pocket and pulled out a sheet of chakra paper. This paper was cultivated by special chakra-sensitive trees, he announced, handing it to Naruto. Transfer some chakra to it and it will react in different ways depending on your chakra nature. Naruto looked at the sheet of paper with curiosity. He was already looking forward to discovering his chakra nature. He focused his hand and transferred a small amount of chakra to the paper. He watched in disbelief as the piece of paper vibrated and shrank in his hand, with bright blue sparks shooting from its edges. He felt a tingling in his fingers and his hair stood up under the electricity. A loud crackling sound echoed in the air. "So lightning nature," Fugaku mused for a moment, tightening his hand on the hilt of his sword. "That doesn't change my plans, though. Sharingan and Cage Bunchins will allow me to teach him other natures of chakra without any problem." "As you can see, boy, you have a lightning chakra nature," announced Fugaku, glancing at the wrinkled sheet of paper from which light arc were still coming out. "However, this only means that it will be easier for you to learn this element. It doesn't exempt you from learning the others." Naruto nodded, staring intently at the piece of paper. Determination shone in his eyes. "Remember that there is a certain balance between the natures of chakra," Fugaku began to explain, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "Raiden towers over the Doton but gives way to the Futon. Futon in turn becomes powerless against Kaiten. Kaiten yields to Suiton while Doton triumphs over Suiton." Fugaku watched Naruto with penetrating eyes, anticipating his reaction. A mixture of severity and concern was painted in his eyes. "Raiden is special among the elements. It is superior to both Suiton and Doton, but remember these words. Mastering all natures of chakra is the key to true strength. Don't be discouraged by the difficulties you encounter on your way. Train hard and with my help, you will achieve everything you desire." Fugaku lifted his gaze to the sky and a ray of sunlight illuminated his face. The sun's rays highlighted the slight wrinkles on his face, traces of years of hard training and battles. "A shinobi's strength is not only in his technique or skill," Fugaku continued. "True strength comes from within, from determination and an unbreakable will to fight. I believe in you, Naruto. You have within you everything it takes to become a great shinobi. Remember that your destiny is in your hands." Fugaku looked at Naruto with penetrating eyes. "That's it for today. Disperse the clones, go home, and think about the path you wish to follow as a shinobi." Naruto nodded, focusing on his flow of chakra. He held up a single ram sign to release the technique, absorbing the clone's knowledge and leftover chakra. For a moment, he lost control of his body, wobbling on his feet. With Fugaku's help, he managed to sit up and catch his breath, fighting the wave of nausea. Fugaku watched his protege closely. He knew that Naruto was young, but at this age the mind is like a sponge, absorbing knowledge with incredible speed. The technique had never been used to train shinobi before, and the risk was great. "Relax, Naruto," Fugaku said, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "It's normal to feel dazed. Your mind needs time to process all this information." Naruto nodded, struggling to restrain his trembling hands. He felt exhausted. "Rest now," Fugaku instructed. "Tomorrow we'll talk about what you've learned." Naruto closed his eyes and leaned on his mentor. Despite his fatigue, his mind was still active, analyzing new information and making plans for the future. Eventually, the fatigue proved too much, and he lost consciousness. Seeing this, Fugaku decided to take Naruto with him and bring him to Namikaze's house. Fugaku looked at the boy with concern. He carefully picked him up and threw him on his back. He knew that Minato and Kushina would not be happy to learn that their son had fainted during training. He could already imagine Kushina's anger and Minato's stern look. What a drag, he thought with a sigh. On the other side of the village, a certain Nara clan head sneezed. "Fugaku-sensei." Naruto greeted his mentor, bowing low. Fugaku looked at him with penetrating eyes. "So Naruto, have you thought through what you want to learn yet?" Naruto nodded. "I want to first focus on Kenjutsu, Jinjutsu and Ninjutsu," he said. "Kenjutsu and Jinjutsu are areas in which I can easily educate you," Fugaku replied. "However, Raiden requires special skills which I will need help to teach you. Let's focus on the first two." Fugaku handed Naruto scrolls and books on Jinjutsu, then added, "Create clones to delve into the secrets of illusion and Jinjutsu techniques. You, on the other hand, have another task. I take it that the leaf balancing exercise has already been mastered." "Yes, Fugaku-sensei," Naruto replied while creating clones that immediately took to reading. Fugaku grunted. "It's time for another skill that will allow you to better control your chakra tree climbing. Watch carefully with your Sharingan." Demonstrating the task, Fugaku climbed vertically up the tree trunk with ease. His movements were smooth and precise. When he reached halfway, he turned to Naruto. "This is an essential skill in the life of a shinobi. Remember balance and harmony. Focus on the flow of chakra and adjust the amount to the shape of the trunk. Get to work." He then handed Naruto a kunai so that he could mark his progress with it, after which he left the training yard, heading toward the Uchiha Police Department. Left with the memories from his Sharingan, Naruto proceeded to attempt to climb the tree. He understood that the key to success was precise control of the chakra in his feet. He had to find the perfect balance to stay on the vertical surface. Theory, however, proved easier than practice. After an hour of fruitless attempts, frustration began to fill his heart. Resigned, he sat dejectedly at the foot of the tree. "When I use too much chakra, I push away from the trunk," Naruto analyzed, staring at the surface gouged by the kunai. "Too little chakra and I just fall. Fugaku-sensei balanced it perfectly." Where is the secret to this skill? Thoughts were boiling in his mind. He recalled Fugaku's words about balance and harmony. He began to think about how to translate these concepts into practice. Suddenly his gaze fell on a stream flowing at the foot of a tree. Gazing into the rushing current, he noticed how the water easily flowed around the stones he encountered, adjusting to their shape. At that moment Naruto was dazzled. "Aha, this is it!" he exclaimed, springing to his feet. Climbing a tree is not a battle against gravity, but a dance with chakra. Naruto once again set about the task. This time he focused on the smooth flow of chakra, adjusting the amount to the shape and slope of the trunk. At first his movements were clumsy, but with each step he became more confident. After several hours of persevering against gravity and chakra, he climbed to the top of the tree in triumph. He gazed with delight at the panoramic view stretching before him, feeling pride and satisfaction at his goal. At the same time, his clones absorbed information from books and scrolls on Genjutsu. After they finished reading, one by one they dispersed, sending a stream of knowledge about illusions and mind manipulation techniques to the original. Naruto, still unsatisfied with his skills, decided to continue practicing. He also began experimenting with its use, testing various techniques and combinations. In the late afternoon, Fugaku returned to the training area. He was surprised to see how Naruto, using the chakra and the knowledge he had gained from the exercise, had learned to use it to speed up his movements. The boy moved at low genin speed, impressive for his age. This is no ordinary talent, thought Fugaku in disbelief. I only showed him an exercise for controlling chakra and gave him one tip, and he learned more from it than I predicted. Surprising. A mixture of surprise, pride and curiosity was painted in his eyes. He had never seen such talent in anyone before. Naruto was like a diamond in the rough that, with the right cut, could become an extremely valuable gem. I see that you have achieved more than I expected, Fugaku said, smirking. You've earned your reward. Come with me, we'll have dinner together with my family. Izumi will certainly be happy to see you. Joy flashed in Naruto's eyes. Really? He asked, unable to believe his happiness. Every moment spent with Izumi was worth everything to him, even the hard training. Fugaku didn't bother replying, simply walking toward the Uchiha clan's neighborhood. When Makoto saw them, a warm smile blossomed on her face. She still couldn't believe that her husband had taken little Naruto under his wing. HMPF, I never expected my husband to still be able to take charge and guide the next generation, Makoto thought. Izumi. She called out loud enough to be heard by her daughter, who was in another room. Yes, Kasen. Replied Izumi loudly. Dinner, and we have a guest. Makoto shouted, and a look of surprise appeared in Izumi's face. Naruto will be with us for dinner. Not a moment passed, and Izumi appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, staring at her friend Naruto. Her onyx eyes widened with surprise and joy. She hadn't seen him in a while, and her longing for him was already giving her a hard time. Makoto watched her daughter's reaction with a smile. She knew Izumi and Naruto were important to each other, and she was glad they could spend time together. Come on, dinner is ready, Makoto said, inviting them into the dining room. There was a warm and family atmosphere in the dining room. Naruto felt at home, surrounded by the kindness of the Uchiha family. After dinner, Naruto and Izumi slipped out into the garden, leaving Fugaku and Makoto alone. I still can't believe you took Naruto under your wing, she announced, looking at her husband with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. What made you do that? Fugaku smiled mysteriously. I myself don't believe what I'm saying, but this boy is more than a genius, Makoto. Seeing the astonishment on her face, he added, I showed him the tree climbing exercise, and do you know what this boy came up with? Makoto shook her head, her curiosity growing. She saw a mixture of pride and admiration in Fugaku's eyes. This boy taught himself how to use chakra to speed up his movements. He announced proudly. Imagine, Makoto, he moved nimbly like a cat leaping from branch to branch. Makoto was stunned. She had never heard of anyone who could control chakra so perfectly at such a young age. It's amazing, she repeated, still unable to believe what she was hearing. I always knew this boy was special. Fugaku nodded, and his smile became even wider. I'm glad you can see that. I believe Naruto has a great future ahead of him. He may even become one of the best shinobi in Konoha's history. Izumi could not hide her excitement. Is it true that Tausen became your mentor? She asked him excitedly as soon as they were alone in a secluded corner of the garden. Naruto smiled broadly, his pride betrayed by the note of satisfaction in his voice. Yes, that's right. Fugaku-sama took me as his personal apprentice. What's training like with my Tausen? Izumi inquired. Despite being her father, Fugaku had little time to spend training Izumi, which left a sense of longing. He's definitely strict, but he's also fair. He doesn't give me preferential treatment, but I know he's doing it for my good. Naruto breathed deeply and told her about the last moment spent under Fugaku's watchful eye and his training. Izumi listened intently, and her heart was filled with happiness at her friend's development. But at the same time, there was an ache in her heart. Naruto really was proving to be a prodigy. At this rate, he'll be leaving me in the dust. Will I ever be able to stand beside him? After a week of intense training under Fugaku's watchful eye, Naruto noticed a clear improvement in his skills. His basic skills improved while also showing a natural talent for illusions and ease in wielding a blade. After heading home from training one day, Naruto heard the whistling of projectiles flying towards him. In the blink of an eye he activated his Sharingan and pulled out a kunai, deftly parrying 3 shurikens aimed at his chest. An ambush. His thoughts were soon distracted by the sight of a boy a few years older with black hair and the Sharingan. "Forgive me, but I've wanted to test you in battle for a long time, Naruto Namikaze," the boy challenged. "My name is Shisui Uchiha." Naruto nodded, still unsure how to react to this unexpected situation. He instinctively hid the kunai, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. "I heard rumors of a young genius who caught the attention of the clan head, but now I see it's true. Not even 6 years old, and you've already reached the level of Sharingan development worthy of a mature shinobi," Shisui said with a hint of admiration in his voice. Naruto listened attentively as the black-haired boy continued, "That's why I wanted to test your talent in battle. What do you say to a short sparring session?" "Sparring?" Naruto thought, surprised by the offer. "I don't have anyone my age to train with, and a sparring partner would be ideal for constantly testing my skills." "Alright, what do you propose?" Naruto asked, a spark of fighting spirit shining in his eyes. "A regular sparring session, no fatal or crippling attacks. Anything else goes?" Shisui asked, and Naruto nodded. After 10 minutes of intense fighting, Naruto stood on the verge of exhaustion. Shisui deftly slipped behind him as the cold metal of a kunai touched Naruto's neck. "I surrender," Naruto relented, raising his hands as a sign of defeat. Shisui took a step back as a grin broke out on his face. "You still did great, Naruto. Your talent is impressive for such a short time being a shinobi." Naruto grimaced bitterly. "A loss is still a loss, Shisui." "Don't look at it that way," Shisui replied, placing his hand on Naruto's shoulder. "The experience gained in battle is more valuable than victory itself. Today you learned a lot, and tomorrow you will be even stronger." Naruto looked into Shisui's eyes. There was truth in his words, and the boy felt his resentment give way to determination. "You're right," Naruto said, straightening up. "I want to get revenge now. Let's have another sparring session." Shisui smirked. "That's what I wanted to hear, my dear Kohai. Although that's it for today. If you wish to continue our rivalry, come to this place tomorrow at the same time. See you then." But those words, Shisui made a half-ram seal, and his body blurred in a smokeless shunshin. Naruto sighed with a mixture of frustration and admiration. I have to ask Fugaku-sensei to teach me that jutsu," he thought, clenching his fists. He already knew that he would be even stronger tomorrow. Naruto returned home, where he found Kushina with a radiant smile on her face. Seeing him, the woman pointed her eyes to the table in the guest room. Eating the lunch she'd prepared earlier sat Izumi Uchiha. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of her, then he smiled broadly and approached her quietly. When he stood behind her chair, Izumi was still unaware of his presence. Letting his Uzumaki nature take over, he decided this would be the perfect opportunity for a prank. "This might bite me in the later though." "Gotcha!" he shouted suddenly at the top of his lungs right by her ear. Izumi jumped with fright, standing up abruptly from the chair. When she turned around, she saw Naruto with a wide smile on his face and his hand outstretched in a greeting gesture. "Hey Izumi-chan," Naruto announced with a big smile, as if he hadn't just scared the girl a moment ago. "Drr," Izumi gritted her teeth. "Naruto, you idiot." She then proceeded to call upon the might of her feminine fury into a punch. "Izumi-chan, that hurts Databeo," Naruto exclaimed with an exaggerated grimace of pain on his face, theatrically clutching his arm. "Huh? I didn't even hit him that hard," Izumi thought, looking at her fist. When she looked at Naruto again, she realized that the boy was deceiving her. "You little." It didn't take a moment for Izumi to decide to take revenge. She was already clenching her fist, ready to strike again, when suddenly their argument was interrupted by Kushina's voice. Children, she announced in a calm and warm voice, in which one could sense a hint of joy. "Stop and eat your dinner in peace. You can explain everything to each other later, but first satisfy your hunger." At those words, Naruto and Izumi looked at each other, embarrassed that they were caught acting so childishly, but wait, they are children. Izumi's cry then tore through the silence of the household. The girl had woken up from the ruckus caused by Naruto and Izumi's play. "Now look at what you've done," Kushina said, not hiding her displeasure. The woman lifted the girl from her crib and began to rock her gently. At the sight of the awakened girl, both Izumi and Naruto felt stupid. "Omen Miss Yumichan," Izumi whispered, stroking the girl's delicate hand. "Me too," Naruto added, lowering his eyes. Miss Yumi, oblivious to the cause of the commotion, babbled incoherently, playing with a strand of her mother's hair. It seemed that Kushina Uzumaki's red hair captivated all. Kushina sighed. "Alright children, quiet now. We don't want Miss Yumi to start crying. Maybe you could go play in the garden," Kushina suggested after a moment. Izumi and Naruto looked at each other, then at Kushina. They both knew it was a good idea. "Alright Kushina-abasan," Izumi replied. "Come on, Naruto-kun." 6 months later. In the moonlight that filtered through the dense branches of the trees, Naruto and Shisui sat on a sprawling branch of an old oak tree. After intense training, they could finally rest and forget about their shinobi duties for a moment. Naruto gazed at the starry sky, and Shisui shared with him his reflections on the enormous responsibility that came with possessing powerful techniques and abilities. Known for his calmness and wisdom, Shisui wanted Naruto to understand that the shinobi world is not black and white, and the line between good and evil is often blurred. Power doesn't define us, Naruto. It's how we use it, how we protect others, and what we are willing to sacrifice that truly matters. He waited a moment to let it sink in. "Tell me, do you know what it means to be a shinobi?" At his negative head shake, Shisui continued. "A shinobi is someone who endures, no matter what they're up against." "Someone who endures." "That's right. This power I was born with, it's for me to protect my family and my loved ones. No matter what, I will always endure for them. Fugaku-sensei, what are we going to do today?" Naruto asked, standing before his mentor. Fugaku stared thoughtfully into the distance, not turning his head at the sound of his voice. "Today, Naruto, you must pass an important milestone," he announced seriously. Seeing the surprise on his charge's face, he added, "Today you will embark on your first mission as a shinobi." Naruto didn't answer with words. He stared determinedly at his mentor. He had long wanted to carry out missions for the village, and now was his chance. "I can see that you are ready," Fugaku said with a satisfied voice. "Then let's go to the Hokage's office to receive the mission." Naruto began walking beside Fugaku, then an idea came to his mind. He quickly created 2 shadow clones, issuing them silent commands. Seeing the surprise in his mentor's eyes, Naruto explained. "One will inform my mother about my mission departure, and the other will pass the message to Mikatsuba-san and Izumi-chan." The boy is already starting to use clones creatively, especially if the reaction from that red demon the night I heard Minato's pathetic screams is anything go by, Fugaku paled. When they stood before the Hokage, Minato smiled at the sight of them, and his gaze rested on Naruto. "So finally after 6 months, you've decided to take him on a mission, Fugaku?" Minato asked jokingly. "That's right, Hokage-sama," Fugaku affirmed seriously. "I request a combat mission so that Naruto can pass his first milestone in his shinobi career." Minato frowned, and his smile disappeared. "Fugaku, Naruto is still my son, and I will not allow him to experience this at the age of 6, he rebuked with a hint of anger in his voice, blue eyes glinting. "That may be so, but he is also my student, and I believe it is high time he experienced this. The sooner he learns the truth, the easier it will be for him to deal with adversity in the future," Fugaku countered, activating his Sharingan for added effect. The room fell silent. Minato and Fugaku glared at each other as killing intent rolled off both sides. Naruto meanwhile broke into a cold sweat. "So this is what elite jounin are capable of. Kawaii scary." Seeing that their stare-off was leading nowhere, Minato relented. "Alright, Fugaku," he said quietly. "You're right. Naruto needs to learn and grow. Find a mission that will be suitable for him, but remember my son's safety is my top priority." Fugaku nodded in relief. "Thank you Hokage-sama. I will not let you down." Minato sighed, defeated. He knew that he could no longer hide the boy from the realities of shinobi life, especially when he observed his impressive progress in learning. The only thing he could do was accept Fugaku's decision. After some searching, Minato found a suitable mission and handed it to Fugaku, who smiled approvingly. "Team Fugaku accepts, Hokage-sama," Fugaku announced, placing his hand on his student's shoulder to lead him out. The student and mentor left the Hokage's office and headed towards the gate of Konohagakure. Naruto's face was a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "Fugaku-sensei, what is this mission about?" he inquired, glancing at the impressive village gates looming in the distance. "This will be my first time outside the village walls," he thought with a hint of excitement. "Our task is to eliminate a bandit camp that has been attacking one of the trade routes in Hai no Kuni Land of Fire." Hearing this, one word in particular stuck out in the boy's mind: eliminate. Eliminate. Is it possible that Naruto began to think, but his further train of thought was interrupted by Fugaku. "I know what you're thinking, boy. This is the reality of shinobi life. Kill or be killed," he announced with a steely voice, his words poured down Naruto's back like a cold shower, awakening him to the reality of his life. So that's what Tausen was so apprehensive about. What am I kidding? Towson is known as the Kairoi Senkin for killing hundreds of Iwa shinobi. It was inevitable that I would have to do the same. They continued to the gate in silence. The weight of Fugaku's words hung over them like a thick fog as he tried to come to terms with what he was about to do. Naruto glanced furtively at his mentor, observing the stern line of his lips and the steely glint in his eyes. Reaching the gate, Fugaku wordlessly handed the mission scroll to the guards. Their faces reflected their surprise when they saw young Nemikaze-sama accompanying the head of the Uchiha clan. However, they refrained from commenting, aware of Fugaku's rank and authority. Naruto watched this scene with a mixture of fear and fascination. On the one hand, he felt intimidated by the seriousness of the situation and the coldness of his mentor. On the other hand, his heart beat faster at the thought of a real mission, of going outside the village walls and facing danger. Am I ready, D? After 2 days of exhausting tree jumping, Naruto and Fugaku finally reached the scene of the attacks as noted from the witnesses of the bandit attacks. Fugaku, as a strict mentor, decided to use this opportunity to teach Naruto the secrets of tracking. Following the bandit's trail, he drew the boy's attention to every detail, teaching him how to interpret broken branches, rubbed leaves, and other small signs left on the ground. Look carefully, Naruto, Fugaku instructed, his Sharingan glowing with a bright red glow, catching even the smallest details. These traces are like a story that you must learn to read. After less than an hour of tracking, including Fugaku's explanations, they reached a cave hidden at the foot of the mountain. The bandits' hideout lurked in the dark interior. Naruto, you know what I expect of you, Fugaku announced in a sharp voice, leaving no room for question. Your mission is to eliminate every bandit inside. It doesn't matter how you do it, just ensure their deaths. The boy clenched his fists. He knew this was a test of his character, a moment of truth to see if he could pass the first milestone. Understood, Fugaku-sensei, he responded with a trembling voice, his gaze becoming hard and determined. Remember Naruto, Fugaku murmured, his Sharingan flashing ominously. Be ruthless and don't hesitate. Close your heart to their suffering. In the heat of battle, mercy is your enemy. Naruto nodded, though his throat tightened with fear. He wasn't sure if he was ready to kill, but he knew he couldn't let his mentor down. Close your heart to their suffering, Naruto repeated Fugaku's words in his head like a mantra. They were meant to drown out the fear and kindle cold determination within him. The boy clenched his fists and, with his Sharingan activated, strode into the bandits' cave. His sudden appearance startled the bandits from their carefree lounging. Their faces showed surprise, then glee. Huh? Look what the wind blew our way, boys, said one of them, apparently the youngest and most reckless. A mocking smile appeared on his face, imagining the easy profit from selling the child on the black market. However, the other bandits didn't share his enthusiasm. Experienced in their trade, they noticed something that their young colleague had overlooked. Look at his forehead, Baka the second bandit announced chastisingly. The youngest one focused his gaze on Naruto again and noticed the Konoha forehead protector. In an instant, he realized that this boy, despite his young age, was already a ninja. Naruto's Sharingan eyes observed the cave's entirety. The number of makeshift beds indicated the presence of 7 bandits. Then, in the corner of the cave, he saw a sight that froze his blood in his veins. In the darkness, in cages like animals, were 2 children, no more than 5 or 6 years old. Their terrified eyes glistened in the moonlight that filtered through the narrow entrance. Something broke in Naruto's heart at that sight. The terror in the eyes of the imprisoned children burned his soul like a voracious fire. Why? He asked himself, but he couldn't find an answer. He froze for a moment, paralyzed by anger and pain as he imagined Mitsumi in place of the children. Seeing an opportunity, the bandits took advantage of his moment of weakness. Waking up from his stupor, he drew his tanto to deflect 2 sloppily thrown shuriken. Using his training, Naruto channeled chakra to HS limbs. As the first bandit swung his oversized axe, Naruto quickly flipped back before running up the handle to deliver a twirling axe kick to the oaf's neck that would make even Might Guy proud. Youth. Quickly he sliced the man's head as blood splattered across his face. It burns, he thought. In the darkness of the cave, Naruto stopped seeing the bandits as humans. In his eyes, they were nothing more than animals, pigs ready to be slaughtered. Seeing their comrade taken out in the span of 3 seconds, the remaining bandits faltered. With that he charged, jumping midair as he thrusted his tanto into the heart of one bandit. He gruesomely swiped the tanto to the side, busting open the bandit's ribsage and flinging his guts everywhere before seamlessly swiping it across another bandit's knee like a razor. "Arg, damn it, I'll kill that brat. Screw or pay," shouted the wounded bandit. Pain pierced his body, making it impossible for him to fight. Even with 2 down and 1 injured, they have numerical advantage and can regroup, Naruto thought, observing the disorganized movements of the bandits. Then a plan formed in his mind. Or ram snake horse dragon. Brayton Jibashi electromagnetic murder. Instantly lightning shot out of his hands, striking the ground where the bandit stood. A powerful electric shock ran through their bodies, paralyzing them. Haha. I couldn't use all of my chakra to make this jutsu live up to its namesake, otherwise I would be a sitting duck. The bandits collapsed, trembling under the interference of the electricity as it overrid their mental impulses. Naruto capitalized, running up to the wounded bandit and drawing a kunai with his left hand and slitting his throat with one fluid motion. Naruto stopped, staring into the glazed eyes of the bandit whose fate he just sealed. In the chilling moonlight, he saw the desperation in his eyes as he desperately tried to stop the stream of blood gushing from the wound before stopping altogether. I killed him, Naruto thought, staring at the bandit's lifeless body. His face, stained with blood, depicted a mixture of surprise and horror. In his eyes, fully awakened for the first time, the third tomo of the Sharingan appeared, revealing the Uchiha clan's esteemed Kekkai Genkai. I took someone's life in cold blood, the word stuck in his throat, like a bitter morsel of reality. The four bandits could only watch with terror. In one moment, they'd lost 3 of their comrades at the hands of this boy. Their faces twisted in fear as their weapons trembled in their hands. Naruto clenched his fists. Mixed feelings stirred in his heart: pride at defeating the enemies, bitterness at taking lives, and fear of the consequences of his actions. Thoughts crashed in his head like waves hitting the shore. What will my parents think of me? What will my mother think when I tell her I killed someone? Naruto pondered in his heart, broken. What will Izumi-chan think of me when she finds out? Suddenly, the silence of the cave was broken by a wild cry. The remaining bandits, determined to avenge their fallen comrades, rushed at Naruto. However, before they could reach the boy, their bodies fell to the ground, headless as Fugaku emerged in a swarm of crows. He decided to intervene when he saw the mixture of shock and trauma in his eyes. He knew that the boy would need time to come to terms with what he'd done. It could have gone better, Fugaku thought, looking at Naruto with concern, who was still frozen in shock. In his eyes, he saw the shadow of death that had forever marked his soul. Naruto stood among the bodies of the bandits, trembling and pale. In the darkness of the cave, a shinobi was born, but this birth was paid for in blood. The boy slowly fell to his knees, his hands clenching into fists. The screams of the bandit still rang in his ears, and images of the fight flashed before his eyes. He felt nauseous and dizzy, his heart pounding like a hammer. I killed them, he thought with horror. I took their lives. At that moment, Fugaku placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder. "Get up, Naruto," the mentor said in a stern but warm voice. "What you did was necessary. Those bandits were a threat to innocent people." Naruto looked at Fugaku with tears in his eyes. "But I killed them," he whispered. "Yes, Naruto," Fugaku replied. "You killed them, but in the name of justice. You protected others from harm. That makes you a shinobi of Konohagakure village." The boy clenched his fists. The mentor's words slowly reached his consciousness. But Naruto whispered, still shaken by his own actions. "What about the children?" Fugaku sighed heavily. His face showed a mixture of sadness and determination. "We'll take them to the village and enroll them in one of the reputable orphanages," the mentor announced with a heavy voice. "Parents?" Naruto asked in a trembling voice. The silence that followed this question was like a painful blow. Deep in his heart, Naruto knew what it meant, but the realization did not diminish the pain that gripped his heart as he yelled out to the night in agony. Fugaku and Naruto remained oblivious to the presence of Zetsu as he quietly watched the flowers of his side project bloom. White Zetsu, with a lecherous smile on his face, praised Naruto's progress. The nasally voice trembled with satisfaction as he turned to his alter ego. "The brat is certainly developing, what do you think, Kuro Black?" Black Zetsu gave no reaction to show he'd heard. His icy gaze lingered on Naruto as he killed 2 bandits in cold blood. The Uchiha made a clever move, forcing him to make his first kill at such a young age. "It will accelerate his maturation," he muttered. You think the brat's ready for this?" White Zetsu scoffed, a wicked grin crossing his yellow eyes. Trauma in his eyes. "Well, that'll only make him stronger unless he cracks under the pressure, like most weaklings." "He'll endure," Black Zetsu replied firmly, his voice devoid of any concern for the child's suffering. "The Uchiha knows what he's doing. The boy needs to harden himself if he's to survive in this cruel world and help us realize our plans." "I think it's time to invest more in the brat," White Zetsu added, his cunning smile widening. "The more blood on his hands, the stronger he'll become for us." Zetsu's dark words concealed a nefarious plan. The boy they were observing was nothing more than a pawn in their game for power. They didn't care about his suffering, only the strength and power they could extract from him. On the day of returning from his first mission, Naruto couldn't shake off the weight of the past. Images of the fight and taking lives still haunted him like ghosts. Even returning to the village brought no relief. The night before he tried for hours to remove the blood from his hands, blood that would forever stain his memory because of the Sharingan. Noticing his student's struggles, Fugaku detoured to a special place, the Konoha cemetery. At its heart stood the memorial stone, a monumental boulder carved to depict the will of fire. Naruto stared at the letters carved on the stone with indifference. He still felt terrible after taking multiple lives that night. He didn't understand the significance of this place. Even the wind, usually playful and mischievous, seemed to whisper here with respect. Fugaku hadn't said a word the whole way. When they stood before the memorial stone, the silence became even more deafening. A few minutes passed before Naruto couldn't take it anymore. Fugaku-sensei, he began with a trembling voice, tearing his gaze away from the stone and looking at his mentor. What are we doing here? What is this stone? Fugaku looked at him with a serious expression. This is the memorial stone, Naruto, he said. Carved on this stone are the names of all Konoha shinobi and Kunoichi who gave their lives for the village. Fugaku's words hit Naruto with the force of a blow. Sadness and respect appeared in his eyes. Once again, he realized the immense sacrifice that came with being a shinobi. The weight of the past and the awareness of the losses weighed on his heart like a stone. Fugaku put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Remember, Naruto, the mentor said with a warm but firm voice. Those whose names you see on this stone were heroes. They fought and died to protect what we love. We should never forget their sacrifice. Their courage and dedication should inspire us. Naruto nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. In silence, he contemplated his mentor's words. At that moment, he understood another fact about the life of a shinobi. The realities of the ninja world are responsibility, honor, and remembrance of those who have passed away. Their names carved on the memorial stone became a symbol of sacrifice. The silence at the memorial stone was broken by Naruto's sudden trembling voice. Fugaku-sensei, he began, his words hanging in the dark air like shadows. Why do people choose violence? Why is there so much hatred in the world? He asked, unable to bear the weight of the emotions that crushed his heart any longer. Fugaku sighed deeply, his furrowed brow expressing concern. That's a complicated question, Naruto, he replied, choosing his words carefully. There are many reasons why people fight and hate each other in the world. Sometimes it's greed that poisons their hearts like venom. Sometimes it's fear that paralyzes their minds and pushes them to do irrational things. And sometimes it's simply misunderstanding that builds walls between people. Naruto clenched his fists, his anger mixing with frustration. But that doesn't make sense. We could all live in peace and harmony, he exclaimed, his voice echoing off the stones. Why can't the world be better? He murmured defeatedly. Fugaku put his hand on the boy's shoulder. You're right, Naruto. The world could be better. But people are weak and make mistakes. Some are selfish and power-hungry, while others are simply lost and don't know how to live in peace, the mentor said, his words carrying sadness and resignation. Naruto looked at his mentor with hope in his eyes. What can we do about it? He asked, his words hanging in the air like an echo. Fugaku thought for a moment, his face becoming serious. We can fight for those we care about, Naruto, he said firmly. We can protect our loved ones and fight for the ideas that guide us. Being a shinobi is not just about strength and skills, but also about responsibility and honor. But remember Naruto, Fugaku continued, his voice becoming softer as he looked out over the stones, in the life of a shinobi, you will have to take lives on a regular basis. But you can never give up your humanity. Never let yourself be consumed by hatred and bloodlust. Remember the values that are most important to you, even in the face of death. Naruto clenched his fists as he heard his mentor's words. The weight of responsibility and the awareness of the atrocities of war weighed on his heart. I promise, Fugaku-sensei, Naruto vowed in a quiet but determined voice. His eyes flashed with a red Sharingan, the three tomo swirling with an ominous power. I will fight for what I love. Even in the face of death, I will never give in to hatred. I will always endure. At his outburst, Fugaku smiled proudly. I believe in you, Naruto, he said in a gentle voice. You possess strength, but also an incredible determination and drive to improve. I believe in time you will become the strongest among us. They remained in silence for a while longer. Naruto carefully observed the names carved on the memorial stone. He felt respect for those who had given their lives. Their names became a symbol of heroism and sacrifice. Go home. Speak with your cousin. You will need her warmth. I will take care of delivering the information about the success of the mission to your father, Fugaku announced, breaking the silence. Naruto nodded slightly, his face filled with gratitude. Fugaku watched as the boy's figure disappeared into the distance, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Taking another person's life has left an echo on this boy's soul. Time will tell what the consequences of this will be, Fugaku thought. He sighed heavily. He knew that what Naruto had done would impact his future too. He could only imagine the beating he would receive from his wife and oldest daughter after he gave the news. Naruto silently slipped into the house and stopped for a moment at the threshold of the living room. Like butter, the exhaustion and grief immediately melted from his face when his eyes came to gaze on his little sister. Miss Yumi, like the little starfish she is, was spread out on the crib and releasing cute giggles as she reached to the ceiling to grab imaginary shuriken and kunai. Already a little ninja, isn't she? Kushina, engrossed in stirring aromatic spices in the dinner pot, heard her son's quiet footsteps but was surprised that he didn't greet her as usual. After a moment, she tore her gaze away from the stew and looked toward the crib. A sliver of anxiety wormed its way in her mind as she saw him stand motionless by Miss Yumi's crib. She was already about to throw herself to her son's aid, already having an idea of the type of mission he went on, when she suddenly noticed the same radiant smile slowly appear on his face. I see Naruto's love for his Amato is stronger than his pain. She thought with a relieved smile, then returned to cooking, leaving Naruto with Miss Yumi. Then she was reminded of her son's life goal and smiled even wider. Don't worry Miss Yumi, I'll always protect you. No matter what, your Itato will always be here. He thought with finality, gazing at Miss Yumi's radiant smile. Tears glistened in his eyes, and his heart was squeezed by painful grief of what he'd done a night earlier. If only he knew what would happen in the years to come. He finally tore his gaze away from his little sister and looked at his mother. He approached her without a word and hugged her from the side. Kushina, surprised by her son's gesture, set the stew aside and embraced him lovingly. What happened, Sachiko? She asked with motherly concern, stroking his blonde hair gently. Naruto began, but his voice was trapped in his throat. All that came out of his mouth was a pitiful sob. The boy was afraid to tell his mother the truth. He didn't know how she would react to this confession. Would she think of him as a monster? Naruto still thought of himself a monster for taking lives that night. Naruto, look at me. Kushina said softly. No matter what happens, your mother will always support you. Hearing those words, he snuggled even further into her arms. A long moment passed before Naruto was able to gather the courage to speak what was weighing on his heart. "You killed a P? No, I killed people," he whispered in a trembling voice full of disgust. Kushina reacted immediately upon hearing her son's confession. She pushed his hands away, which intensified the pain on his face. For a split second, she felt a sting in her heart when she saw that her gesture only deepened Naruto's suffering. However, she had to do so in order to crouch down and embrace him. Her heart was breaking at the sight of the boy trembling with emotion. "I'll tear Fugaku a new one, you two Minatabaka. But right now Naruto needs some attention," Kushina thought angrily, but also with concern for her son. "Sachi, this is the nature of our profession," she announced, trying to reassure him. After a moment, she added, "I wanted to protect you from this for as long as possible. It pains me that you experienced the darkness of the shinobi world at such a young age. But remember, your actions saved countless lives. For that, your family will always support you regardless of your path, okay?" Naruto remained in his mother's embrace, even whilst the dinner she had prepared earlier began to burn. However, Kushina wasn't worried about it. She knew they could pop out to Ichiraku's right now. Naruto's condition was the most important thing. A yellow flash suddenly made its way through the room as Minato appeared. A serious expression was painted on his face which disappeared for a split second when he saw Kushina and Naruto embracing. The joy of that sight faded when he caught a glimpse of Kushina's gaze, which promised him pain. "I knew it would end like this," thought Minato with regret, trying to explain to himself that it was necessary for his son's development. However, the sight of Naruto trembling with emotion made him realize his mistake. His son was innocent and he had forced him to take someone else's life. The next day, Naruto woke up in his bed with no memory of how he got there. He quickly realized that it was probably his mother who put him to sleep when he lost consciousness from physical and mental exhaustion the previous day. In the life of a shinobi you will come to take lives on a daily basis. But you must never abandon your humanity, boy. Never let yourself be consumed by hatred and bloodlust. Remember your values even in the face of death, were his mentor's words. Emotions and thoughts were boiling in his head. After yesterday he understood that his family would love him unconditionally. However, he feared one person's reaction to his confession of taking someone's life. Izumi Uchiha, his best friend and a person unimaginably close to him. "I'll visit Izumi after training," thought the boy. He needed something to take his mind off the mission. Standing up, he prepared for another grueling training session with Fugaku. "Aheyo, good morning Mikitsuba-san," Naruto greeted, bowing slightly with an ache. Mikoto was surprised by his visit just after training, but upon seeing Fugaku standing next to him, she realized it was something more serious. "Aheyo Naruto-kun," she reciprocated, gazing at the boy's face. She had known him long enough to sense a subtle change in his attitude. She felt that something serious had happened in his life, and Fugaku being there reaffirmed that. "Is Izumi-chan here?" Mikoto nodded. "Izumi's probably in her room," she replied, a mixture of concern and understanding was painted in her eyes. She guessed why Naruto had come and felt that this meeting would be difficult for him. "Argiado, Abasan," Naruto nodded and moved toward the hallway leading to Izumi's room. With each step, his heart pounded harder and harder in his chest. He felt apprehensive about this conversation, but at the same time he wanted to confess the truth to his friend. The boy didn't want to keep any secrets from her. When he reached the door of Izumi's room, he hesitated for a moment. Finally, he gathered his courage and gently knocked. "Come in." Her voice rang out from behind the door. Naruto took a deep breath, his hands trembled as he grasped the door handle. It's now or never. He opened the door and stood in front of Izumi. "Izumi-chan, would you like to come to the Hokage monument with me?" He choked out the question in a trembling voice. A mixture of fear and hope was painted in his eyes. Izumi stared at him with concern in her eyes. Naruto was always brimming with confidence whenever he spoke with her. To unsettle her best friend like this, she couldn't bring herself to imagine what he went through. "What happened, Naruto-kun?" she asked softly, her voice gentle and full of care. Naruto lowered his gaze. Without a word, she turned and entered her room, closing the door behind her. Naruto pondered the words that would fit the current situation. However, he didn't find any before Izumi could open the door again. She soon emerged and gave him a small, reassuring smile. Naruto nodded gratefully at her. They both headed towards the exit of the Uchiha clan head's house. "We're going out, Kasen." Izumi shouted loud enough for her mother to hear, but not loud enough to wake Sasuke, who was probably sleeping now. "What happened, Naruto-kun?" she asked herself for the umpteenth time on their journey to the Hokage monument, glancing at the boy. However, Izumi couldn't find the answer, and the atmosphere around him wasn't conducive to conversation. Finally, they both reached the Hokage monument in silence. They resumed their traditional positions on the Sandame's spiky head, feet dangling over the edge. Before them stretched a panoramic view of the village of Konoha with the last embers of the day, painting the sky purple and orange. "Thank you for coming with me," Naruto said, his voice barely audible. Izumi put her hand on his shoulder and smiled sadly. "For you, Naruto, always." D. 1 year later. D. Another sunny day in Konoha's perfect weather, we find ourselves at Training Ground 11 with Naruto eagerly practicing a crank raten jutsu. Going through the signs again for the umpth time, he was interrupted by an Anbu member who appeared in a whirl of leaves. "Namikaze Naruto, Hokage-sama summons you to his office immediately," the newcomer announced, disappearing just as soon as he appeared in a shunshin. Naruto froze, surprised by the sudden summons. Questions raced through his mind. Why is Tausen calling me out of the blue? What's going on? He thought, nervously scratching his head. There's no time to dwell. I need to notify Fugaku-sensei first. With a quick hand sign, he mentally commanded his clone to deliver his message before departing the training ground himself, intent on speaking with his father. As he entered the village outskirts, many villagers immediately recognized him, either giving a quick bow or smiling and waving. Even after the constant gestures, Naruto would still get flustered, never fully getting used to the attention, but returning their gestures nonetheless. A lot has happened in his life over the past year. Starting from the increasingly intense training under Fugaku's demanding eye to the missions where he had to take lives. After some time he finally came to terms with his cruelty, but it never became easier. Getting bored with his sedentary pace, he quickly took to the roofs, merging with the ongoing ninja traffic. I mean seriously, what about the property damage to the roofs and buildings from doing this? After a few minutes, he finally stood on the threshold of the office and froze when his gaze met with those gathered there. His whole family was present, Minato and Kushina along with Miss Yumi, as well as Mikoto and Fugaku with little Sasuke in their arms, with only Izumi being missing. Everyone smiled widely at him, even Fugaku, while Mikoto struggled to hold an impatient Sasuke as he squirmed in her arms, wanting to run to him. Miss Yumi reacted similarly when she saw her older brother. She lost her speech for a moment and her eyes widened with surprise before she started giggling happily. After a moment, Naruto took his eyes off his family and looked at his father sitting behind the Hokage's desk. On the oakwood desk lay a freshly minted, olive-green Chunin jacket just gleaming in the sunlight of the open office. The boy frowned, unable to believe his eyes. A Chunin jacket? Is it possible? Naruto thought, looking from his father to the flak jacket. His mind was racing with questions. Does that mean? All he needed to do was look to the faces of the adults in the room as they confirmed his suspicions. Equipped with his new Chunin jacket, Naruto sat on the monument right above the Sandame's spiky head. Shouldn't that be uncomfortable? Ever since he learned about his sacrifice for the village and his family, he felt obligated to honor his fallen grandfather figure. From now on he would be a Chunin, a shinobi with greater duties and obligations to the village, but now he could honor the Sandame's sacrifice through his own service to Konoha. When everyone's returning home, it feels so peaceful and beautiful, the boy thought, gazing at the panorama of his beloved Hidden Leaf village. But now I'll have more responsibilities and less time for my family. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by the crunch of footsteps on the gravel. He didn't take his eyes off the village because he knew who had come to visit him. Besides him and Shisui, only one other person knew his favorite place to get away from everything and everyone. She joined him in looking over the quieting village. Naruto-kun, she began after a short silence, taking her eyes off the beautiful sunset panorama in exchange to look at her friend. Why the sadness? Shouldn't you be happy about your promotion? He shook his head. From now on I'll have less time for my loved ones, he replied tiredly, still looking at the village. Doubts about the promotion arose in his head. Seeing him start to question himself, she decided to act. Smile. She announced, poking him in the arm with a mischievous smile. Sadness doesn't suit your face. When he turned his attention to her, she added, you're right, you'll have less time for us, but that doesn't mean you'll disappear from our lives completely. After all, you won't be constantly sent on missions lasting for several days. It's enough to plan your free time wisely and devote it to your family and friends, instead of constantly training. Naruto sighed, then a faint smile appeared on his face as he looked into Izumi's eyes once again. You're right, Izumi-chan, he relented, then added in a warm tone. What is it with you and your advice, You always know how to cheer me up. Because I know you better than you know yourself, the girl replied triumphantly with a satisfied smirk. They both burst out laughing, looking at each other. Their laughter echoed on the cliff of the Hokage monument. It was the moments like these that Naruto would look back on and cherish, a constant reminder of what he set out to protect. He woke up the next morning with a gnawing feeling in his stomach, something between butterflies and stomach churning after trying his father's cooking. He had a feeling that today would bring some misfortune. The sun lazily broke through the thin curtains, casting faint orange reflections on the wall. He got out of bed dressed in a black shirt and orange pants. Going to his desk, there lay another mysterious scroll. After his first mission, he received such scrolls on the first day of each month. Each of them was like a gateway to a new world filled with new techniques and various exercises aimed at perfecting different areas of the shinobi arts. For a year he had not been able to discover who was giving him these scrolls, but he didn't feel the need to investigate. More important to him was the knowledge hidden in the scrolls. Knowledge that allowed him to delve into new skills. The boy unrolled the latest scroll carefully as it rustled quietly in his hands. It contained a detailed theory about the Yondaime Raikage's famous technique, Raiden no Yoroi lightning release armor. Naruto's heart beat faster as he read the next sentences. This discovery exceeded all his expectations and convinced him that the person who gave him the scrolls could not be an ordinary person. Only someone who'd battled the Raikage could have developed such a theory. His eyes then came across an additional note written in small print. Treat it as a challenge. Create your own version of it and you will be rewarded. These words aroused even greater determination in Naruto. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to take on the challenge. He wanted to face the challenge posed by the unknown benefactor. The boy closed his eyes for a moment, concentrating on the flow of chakra. A quiet hum resounded in his body, indicating control over a huge amount of chakra for his age. He opened them again, and his Sharingan flashed with a violet glow. His sharpened gaze eagerly reread the information, instantly memorizing the theory. Whoever you are, thank you for the scroll once again, the boy announced quietly, as always receiving no answer. He proceeded to store the scroll in a seal on his right hand. The storage seal created by his mentor was the only place where he could keep them safe. Fugaku looked at him with his ever-present stern face. Naruto, there will be no training today, he announced in a serious voice. One of the genin squads has sent a request for support with a mission. You have been chosen to provide it. Naruto felt a rush of adrenaline. A request for support meant that the mission had encountered problems. The lives of shinobi in Kunoichi now depended on his skills. Understood, Naruto replied, clenching his fists. I will not disappoint you, Fugaku-sensei. But this will be a mission solely for you, Fugaku added, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket and tossing it to his student. It contained a copy of the distress message from the squad that was asking for support. Because of my duties, I'm unable to accompany you, and time is of the essence. You leave immediately and are to ensure their safe return. Understood. Hi, Fugaku-sensei, the boy replied, his eyes reflecting his desire to do everything he could to save the squad. Squad 16 encountered an rogue shinobi during their mission, Fugaku began. A conflict ensued where the squad leader was seriously injured. Fortunately, according to the message, the genin emerged from the confrontation unharmed thanks to the sacrifice of their leader. The paper also contains a rough instruction on how to reach their temporary hideout. Due to their sudden escape, they probably won't be staying in the same location, so you'll probably have to track them down. In the forests of the High no Kuni, Naruto darted from branch to branch like lightning, propelled by his chakra-augmented mind was still clouded with the details of the mission. An unidentified shinobi attacked them during a simple escort mission of a diplomat, Naruto pondered. The diplomat was murdered, and the squad leader barely escaped with his life after confronting the attacker. According to the information, he's alive thanks to the Irene jutsu one of the squad members knows, but without professional help his life is in danger. I have to hurry. Reaching the scene, he was unprepared for what met his vision. Before his eyes stretched a gruesome sight, not only the body of the murdered diplomat, but also the corpses of the members of Squad 16. An adult and 3 teenagers lay motionless next to each other. Their pale skin was stained with blood, while their bodies were mutilated with stumps, and spikes impaled them in multiple locations. The boy's Sharingan activated automatically, quickly scanning for life signs. He could feel his throat closing as hot tears emerged from his eyes, the Sharingan ingraining the gruesome scene into his memory, forever to haunt him. He wanted nothing more than to feel his mother's warm hug at that moment, but he couldn't. Blinking away the tears, Naruto approached the nearest person, kneeling down beside them and checking for a pulse. The cold of the dead body sent a shiver through him. Questions swirled in his head, and anger mixed with despair. If they're dead, then who wrote the request for help? What happened here? He choked to himself, checking the pulse of the others. None were alive. As Naruto examined the body of the squad leader, he suddenly got a strange feeling. The space before him rippled as if distorted by an invisible force. The silhouette of a figure slowly materialized in the darkness. Space-time ninjutsu? Naruto thought, throwing a kunai at the phenomenon. It simply phased through, no indication of it causing any damage, but it didn't emerge from behind the figure. It was lost in the portal. Do you really want this confrontation, boy? A rough voice of the newcomer resounded. The man was hiding in the shadow of a black cloak, face concealed by an odd swirl mask with ripple patterns and black streaks, a hole available for just his left eye. His black, spiky hair was exposed. Gauging his opponent's chakra, Naruto realized that a fight with him was doomed. He nimbly backflipped to create distance while his assailant stared at him with curiosity. Can I retreat? He wondered, lips in a fine line. He immediately dismissed it, realizing that the opponent could easily match his speed. Don't be afraid, the mysterious man announced, noticing the boy flinch when he felt the murderous killing intent emanating from him. I have long desired to meet you without interference. Does that mean he's sparing me? The murderous desire emanating from the man told him otherwise as his instincts told him to flee. Who are you? The boy asked quietly, still choking on words. The stranger's eye flashed red as 3 Tomo spun as his Dojutsu came to life. Sharingan. Naruto cried in his mind. The mystery man watched his reaction with satisfaction. I am Uchiha Madara, the man announced with power in his voice, titling himself with the name of the legendary Uchiha. I am possible, the boy uttered with difficulty, his face showing a mixture of fear and disbelief. Uchiha Madara has been dead for years, he managed to stammer out. As if he were insulted, Naruto felt an even greater pressure emanating from the opponent. The aura of death became thicker, and the man's murderous desire seemed to choke him. Am I not here? Madara asked with a steely voice, his words piercing Naruto like blades. The man intensified his murderous aura and added, I assure you, boy, Madara Uchiha stands before you. The same one who spread terror decades ago. What? Naruto tried to formulate a question, but the words got stuck in his throat. The fear of the man was so strong that the boy fell to his knees, clutching his chest in an attempt to catch his breath. I wanted to meet the child who awakened a bastardized version of the Uchiha clan's Kekkei Genkai, the man announced, approaching the boy with slow steps. With each step, the aura of death around him thickened and Naruto felt its weight on his shoulders, receiving various visions of himself being brutally impaled with wooden spikes. He didn't notice as Madara stood right in front him. Even after all this, you are still weak. So much investment and you still do not meet my expectations. Investment? What is he talking about? The boy thought, still struggling to catch his breath. He looked at the man who claimed to be the legendary Uchiha, his mind filled with chaos. You've disappointed me, boy, Madara said, his voice piercing Naruto like an icy dagger. Maybe you need another push, Satisfied by the boy's surprise. Maybe the death of your Yamato will help you reach your true potential. Or perhaps the death of your Uchiha friend, Izumi. At the mention of his sister, Naruto's blood boiled. And when he heard Izumi's name, he was filled with rage. Anger and despair broke through the barrier of fear as the boy lunged at his opponent without hesitation. In an instant, he drew his tanto from behind his back, streaming lightning chakra down its length. He quickly slashed at the man, but his opponent didn't even bother evading, his attack merely passing through the Uchiha's figure as if it didn't exist. As soon as the blade exited his astral form, he grabbed the boy by the neck, disarming his tanto carelessly and lifting him to eye level. The boy squirmed helplessly, trying to launch himself off the man's chest with his legs, but that only resulted in him being throttled in the stomach, knocking the air out of his lungs. He recoiled in pain, only to be punched again. Yes, realize the difference between you and me, he announced with a sinister joy in his voice. Remember, boy, I can take away everything you love at any moment and there's nothing you can do to stop me. But those words, he unceremoniously dumped Naruto's figure on the ground. The boy writhed in pain, his body shaking like a leaf. Madara looked at him once more before disappearing. As he departed, Naruto slowly sank into the abyss of unconsciousness, left vulnerable to the wilderness. The pain and mental exhaustion was too strong for his young mind to bear. It was hard to tell which was worse, the agony of seeing his dead comrades and the threats Madara made against Mizumi and Izumi, or the physical trauma of his blows. Night eventually blanketed the forest in darkness, but a figure moved through the blackness unhindered. It emerged from the brush to reveal a wolf with silvery fur and eyes that shone like emeralds. The wolf sniffed cautiously, following the trail of blood and death until it eventually reached the bodies of the fallen shinobi of Squad 16. He stopped at each one, sniffing them disinterestedly. When he reached Naruto though, his heart beat faster. The boy was still alive, though his breathing was shallow and his face deathly pale. The wolf didn't hesitate. Grabbing Naruto's jacket with his teeth, he got under the boy before positioning him precariously on his back before departing for his den. He knew that Naruto would be safe there. Under the cover of night, the wolf ran through the forest, carrying the defenseless boy on his back. Normally his kind didn't involve themselves with the shinobi world, but there was something special about this boy, something instinctual that made the creature wanted to save Naruto, feeling instinctively that he was someone special. When they reached the wolf's hidden cave, the intelligent animal laid the boy down on soft moss. Then he brought him water from a nearby stream and watched over him until morning. When Naruto awoke, he felt weak as his aching muscles slowly made themselves known. Next to him sat the wolf, who opted to stare curiously. In their gaze, Naruto saw concern and kindness. The wolf nodded when it saw that the boy had woken up from sleep. "What happened?" Naruto asked, leaning on his elbows on the moss bed. He didn't expect an answer from the wolf, but he received one nonetheless. "I found you among the dead bodies on one of your human paths," the creature answered. It waited for his reaction to its words, but Naruto just nodded without surprise. "Aren't you surprised that I can talk, boy? My father can summon talking toads, so meeting a wolf with the ability to speak doesn't surprise me at all." "Silver Wolf," the boy replied, as he managed to recall the events before he lost consciousness. Realizing he was left defenseless after his encounter, the boy added with a slight grimace and bow, "Thank you for your care. If I can, might I know your name? I would like to know who my savior is." "Isn't it custom amongst you humans to introduce yourselves before asking?" the wolf lazily replied, opting to lick his paw. After hearing this, the boy winced, having tried to grab the back of his neck out of embarrassment, but was instantly reminded of his aching muscles. "I apologize for my manners. My name is Naruto Namikaze," the boy replied kindly. "Nice to meet you, Naruto-san. I am Jin," the wolf introduced. "Was I unconscious for long, Ginsen?" the boy asked with regret in his voice. He failed his mission. The most he could do now was return the bodies of his fallen comrades, that is if they weren't picked apart by the wilderness and scavengers. "Assuming you didn't lie on the path for too long, you were only unconscious for a whole day," the wolf replied, now opting to scratch behind his ear using his hind leg. "And thank you again for your help. If there is anything I can do in return, I will gladly do it," the boy announced with a serious expression that did not resemble a 7-year-old. "You don't have to thank me. I assume we'll both benefit from this situation," Jin replied, for the first time looking seriously. Seeing the boy's surprise, he added, "I saw your fight, boy. You may have been outclassed this time, but I saw your courage and how you stood up for your pack when it was threatened. There's something special about you, boy. I believe you will only get stronger with time, and I would like you by the wolf's side as that happens. Now what do you say, Ninja Human? How would you like to be our summoner?" "Huh?" Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing. The wolf's words greatly surprised him. To be offered a summoning was rare. Few shinobi held their own summons, the most notable being Hanzo the Salamander and the legendary Sannin. Seeing the shock on the boy's face, Jin misinterpreted his reaction. "You would spit on this honor?" he asked with anger in his voice. "Is there something wrong with wolves, you hairless monkey?" he growled. Naruto shook his head vigorously. "No, that's not it, Ginsen," he protested. "It's a great honor for me, but it's just I'm not sure if I'm worthy of it." Jin narrowed his eyes, looking at the boy with a scrutinizing gaze. "Naruto," he began slowly, "I am one of the elders of the Wolf Clan from the Crimson Forest. I see potential in you. However, remember that I am only giving you a chance. Only the leader of the pack, Genshi, will decide if you are worthy." The wolf paused for a moment, then continued, "If you win his approval and prove your worth, you will gain powerful allies. We wolves, on the other hand, will gain a summoner, and thanks to you, we will be able to show the world that we exist again." Jin trotted slowly towards Naruto, his voice taking on a gentle tone. "I know you've been through a lot, Ninjin. Your eyes speak volumes, and that's why I want to give you this chance. Prove me right." Jin raised his front right paw into the air and concentrated chakra into it. Then he hit the ground with it and a column of smoke erupted from the impact. As the smoke cleared, Naruto saw a massive scroll in front of him. The scroll was almost empty, with the only symbol of a wolf's paw in the lower right corner. "Sign this scroll with blood," Jin announced. "Then I will show you how to use the summoning technique. You will summon your companion from the wolf pack who will accompany you to the end." Seeing his head tilt to the side in confusion, Jin decided to clarify. "The wolf you summon will be your soulmate from the pack. You will share many memories. However, remember that during the trial period you will not be able to summon any other wolf until the leader of the pack, Genshi, accepts you. Do you understand?" Naruto nodded, confirming that he understood the elder wolf's words. Seeing his acknowledgement, he continued, "The signs and order for the summoning technique are boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram. The more chakra you use, the more powerful the summon that will heed your call." The boy nodded again, soaking in the details. Ignoring his aching muscles, he pulled a kunai from his pouch and nicked his finger. A drop of blood flowed from his wound which he dotted onto his fingertips before signing his name in the scroll, becoming the first human to ever be a summoner of the wolves. Then, running through the seals and calling on whatever chakra he had left, Naruto slammed his hand on the ground as smoke once again erupted from the cave. Boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram. Kuchiyus no Jutsu. After the smoke cleared, Naruto and Jin saw a small wolf cub. She had light silver fur with black stripes that ran down her back and down her legs before pooling at her paws. Black fur also stretched down her snout and circled around her ears. Blue eyes like a clear sky looked at them with a bit of fear for being called so suddenly. "The daughter of the pack leader?" Jin thought with slight surprise. "That's interesting. I'll have to explain this situation to Genshin-sama." The little wolf cub looked around with curiosity. She had never been to the shinobi world before. At the sight of Jin, she calmed down and trotted toward him with a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "And Sama, what's going on?" she asked in an innocent voice. "I'm preparing a new summoner for the Crimson Forest. And as it turns out, you're his first summon," Jin announced with a smile, watching her surprise. "Huh? You mean I was summoned first by him?" The wolf cub asked with joy in her voice, not hiding her happiness. She had long wanted to experience the shinobi world, but her father kept forbidding her. Genshi always claimed that she was too young. "Yes, that's true," Jin confirmed with a seriousness, though he couldn't hide his amazement at the sight of the puppy wagging its tail. "What's your name?" She turned to Naruto with a twinkle in her eyes, her tail still wagging. "I thought it was customary for others to introduce themselves." He responded playfully while giving a knowing glance to Jin. The elder wolf only snorted while muttering something about brats and manners. At that, the wolf cub looked down abashed with her ears flat to her head. "My name's Tsukunami, daughter of the Crimson Forest wolf pack leader," she started off shyly before finishing off proudly as she puffed her chest out. "Well then Tsukunami-san, my name is Naruto Namikaze, strongest chunin of my age and son of the Yondaime Hokage, the fastest man alive and leader of the strongest village in the world," he replied smugly, as if onuping her with his intro. "Maybe the strongest village in your human world, but not amongst the summons," she replied in a disgruntled tone. That quickly changed as she was reminded of her joy of having a summoner. "I look forward to tearing our enemies apart, Naruto-san. Now, do you prefer decapitation or disembowelment?" she asked with a head tilt. "What have I gotten myself into?" Naruto thought to himself, face paling and eyes turning comedically white. Day of Naruto's mission training ground 11. Hyugaku shunshined into the training ground, exhaustion evident on his face. The weight of his duties as Konoha's police chief while mentoring a student was taking its toll. He was already mentally preparing an excuse for his tardiness when his gaze suddenly fell on the empty field. "Where's Naruto?" he thought incredulously. "He's never late for training, and he'd practice while waiting for me." Pulsing some chakra to his eyes, he scanned the clearing with his Sharingan in case the boy had decided to pull one of his latest pranks on him, but the boy was nowhere to be seen. Fugaku's ever-stern face grew even more steely as he pondered what happened to his prodigy student. Perhaps something detained him? He wondered. He decided to wait, but time passed and Naruto